Let's face it, navigating the complex world gets even trickier when you're trying to guide a young person through it, especially if they're in that sweet spot, between maybe 7 and 12. They've started to outgrow the simple stuff, but they're not quite ready for the really heavy, formal topics. So today, we're doing a deep dive into some pretty unusual source material. It's an actual physical book called Ivan and the Little Magic Pony. And our mission here isn't just to, review a fairy tale. It's to explore how this specific combo of story and creative activity can act as this uniquely warm bridge for deep conversations with kids. We're really treating this book as a high-value tool, a structured, low-pressure connection ritual for adventure, creativity, and shared emotional understanding.
And that's an absolutely essential premise. I mean, it taps into some really fascinating research when you frame it that way. When you call it a connection tool, you're focusing on creating this dedicated, reliable space for a shared experience. For this deep dive, we've pulled from a few different fields. There's the neurobiology of, trauma-informed communication, the very quantifiable impacts of shared reading on a child's development, and then just a deep analysis of these traditional folklore narratives. And the book itself, it draws from these ancient Slavic traditions, and it's designed to gently tackle some really sophisticated real-world themes. We're talking freedom, responsibility, power dynamics, social pressure, even confronting unspoken historical loss. But I have to lead with the core safety concern here, putting on my caring skeptic hat. Given how deep these themes can go, how do you stop this rich story with all its ready-made questions from just suffering from overload? How do we make sure this connection ritual doesn't accidentally become a formal lesson, or even worse, like educational homework that pressures the child and just destroys the very warmth you're promising?
That tension is, it's absolutely vital to manage, because the second a child feels like they're being tested or lectured, or that their emotional response is wrong,
the connection's gone.
It just shuts down. The whole thing fails. And I think the book's design, its actual structure, is what stops that from happening. It's like safety is built directly into the ritual itself. Okay, so let's unpack that structure.
Yeah.
Physically, what you get is a complete full-length fairy tale. It's about Ivan, his little magic pony, and a brave princess who is, a subject, not just some prize to be won.
And our sources point to this whole series of really compelling quests.
Right. And crucially, the whole story is broken up into 42 really concise chapters. And every single key moment, every episode, has a full-page coloring scene right there with it.
So it's not just an afterthought.
No, it's a core mechanism. And on top of that, you get these thoughtful, non-moralizing questions and practical tips that are written specifically for the adult, for the guide.
So it's not just a story with pictures, and it's not a workbook either. It's an integration. It's designed for simultaneous verbal and nonverbal engagement.
Exactly. The whole concept is that this is an experience, not an assignment. The book's purpose is, and I'm quoting here, to read, color, and sometimes just sit in quiet together.
That coloring part is the decompression chamber.
It is. It's this low-stakes, physical, concrete thing to do that lets the child and the adult, frankly, process what's happening in the story without any verbal pressure.
And this structure, it's not just, a good feeling. It's actually backed by some pretty robust developmental psychology. We're looking at sources on shared book reading, or SBR.
Yeah, and it's been studied for decades. The academic review we have highlights that SBR interventions, especially when they include what researchers call emotion discourse.
That's the key part.
That's the key. They significantly enhance a child's social and emotional competence, or SEC, which is where that simple coloring page becomes this incredibly powerful cognitive tool. The review we have says SBR needs 3 things. The adult, the child, and the book. And the adult's job is to sort of mediate between the story and the child's inner world.
Right, to help them build that vocabulary. But here's the mechanism that I think gets missed a lot. The coloring page gives you an alternative channel for that emotion discourse.
Totally.
But if they're coloring while you ask, or just while they're thinking about that scene they just read, the cognitive load is way lower. They're not staring at you. They're focused on this tactile thing. And that allows for a much more honest, less defensive reflection.
And what's wild is that the outcomes from that SBR research, things like more empathy, better pro-social behavior, deeper understanding of emotions, those are exactly what the book is trying to cultivate with its themes.
And by starting early, around that 7 to 9-year-old range for reading together, you're intentionally building that emotional vocabulary during a really critical developmental window.
Yeah, and we should talk about that age targeting.
We should, because most SBR stuff is for preschoolers, right? This book is aiming for that 7 to 12 range. That's a kid who is starting to understand peer pressure, social hierarchies, and complex feelings like envy or disappointment.
Right. The kind of story a 10-year-old needs has to go way beyond simple cause and effect. And that's why the grand fairy tale scale works so well. It gives them the vocabulary to understand why they might feel anxious when their friends are whispering, or why sometimes getting what you want doesn't actually feel that great. Let's talk about that foundational feeling, the vibe, because the safety of the whole ritual really depends on the emotional security of the story itself. The core feeling of this adventure is, well, it's one of profound support. Ivan leaves home, but not because of trauma. He wasn't kicked out. He leaves because of inner growth and love.
Right. His father actually supports him.
He does. His brothers grumble, sure, but he's already proven he's not a fool. He saved the harvest. He brought in these amazing horses. He's choosing to walk his own path. And that sets up this warm adventure with a sense of support.
And that's a huge narrative choice. Leaving out of self-actualization instead of, say, desperation. That's a crucial psychological safety net. The story is saying, the world is worth exploring and your home base is still secure.
Exactly. The whole engine is that classic, comforting fairy tale structure. Task leads to a road, leads to encounters, leads to trials, which leads to a new layer of understanding the world.
It's all anchored in that promise. I'm in a story. I have a friend we'll manage.
And Ivan himself is the embodiment of this.
Yeah.
This gentle strength. The source is highlighted again and again. He's gentle, observant, not like everyone else.
He's not the brawny hero.
No, he's not the archetypal hero who solves things with aggression or brute force. He uses kindness, patience, cleverness. I mean, the story notes that even wild horses obey him without him needing to use force. He represents the strength of softness.
And that subversion of the hypermasculine hero is so relevant today. I mean, you look at the wider social context. An emotional openness, especially in boys, is often seen as a weakness.
It's penalized.
It is. Kids are told to be tough, emotionally buttoned up, performatively successful, and Ivan he rejects that pressure. And in doing that, he gives kids a model for finding their own authenticity.
And he runs right into the consequences of that nonconformity when he gets to the royal court. This links directly to the sources we have on adolescent mental health. We know that young people who deal with things like anxiety and depression are incredibly sensitive to social comparison, to the fear of being judged.
So what happens when he gets to the court?
The courtiers, the social elite, they start conspiring against him. They're whispering, he's too good, he's faking it, he must be using magic. Their first reaction isn't to celebrate him, it's to test him.
Which is a perfect mirror of the current digital anxiety landscape.
The moment you show genuine, unique success, you run into people who applaud the image, envy, and weave intrigues. That struggle is so relatable for kids dealing with the pressure of idealized, curated lives on social media. Ivan is forced into this psychological minefield of performance anxiety.
And that brings us to the relevance check. Why does this particular character, Ivan, matter so much right now?
I mean, the data is clear. Social media broadcasts these unattainable images of success, of lifestyle, and it dramatically increases anxiety and lowers self-esteem in kids because there's comparing their messy, real life to someone else's highlight reel.
And Ivan offers this radical alternative, a model of strength that comes purely from being authentic and kind, not from performance or some manufactured perfection.
And he doesn't have to do it alone. The little magic pony is absolutely essential.
Right, the pony is his intuition.
He's his intuition and his talent, all rolled into one. He's small, stubborn, funny, but his advice is always spot on. He's not just a magical helper. He's a real friend who gives encouragement, cracks jokes, and just releases the tension. He's that crucial, anti-pretentious moment we all need.
Let's talk about that playful relief for a second, because it's such a brilliant way to pace the emotional load. You mentioned the whirly tail moment.
Oh, it's such a great scene. The source material paints this really intense picture. They're in a tiny boat fighting a giant fish in this deadly whirlpool. The boat gets smashed. They manage to stop the fish with a firebird feather, but they're still stranded and exhausted. It's a real crisis.
The normal story beat there would be, what, Ivan finds another magic item or tames the beast with his willpower.
Right. But instead, the relief comes from this moment of shared, spontaneous humor. The pony, in this mix of frustration and inspiration, just yells out, "What whirly tail you are!" And the fish, sensing that shift from a command to this playful name, just responds.
They solve the crisis by inventing a funny nickname.
Exactly. There's a perfect little example of how light contact and shared humor that anti-pretentious moment, can solve problems that seriousness and force just can't touch.
And that little anecdote just underlines the bigger theme, doesn't it? The world is complex and uneven. Some people will always applaud the image and weave intrigues and try to box you in.
But there are others out there.
There are others, your people. The book's core message seems to be yourself and look for your people. They will see you. And that is an incredibly powerful inoculation against the cynicism that can develop when kids face the unfairness of social judgment.
Okay, moving on. The narrative's ambition here is just enormous. The story is intentionally built on a truly cinematic fairy tale scale, and that gives you this overwhelming sense of wonder and scope, and it deliberately makes sure the book never feels like a small, preachy conversation manual.
That sense of scale is so important for immersion. It really transports you, and it elevates the themes beyond just a simple morality play. It helps a child engage with the world's complexity as this huge spectacle they're part of, not just a list of emotional problems to solve.
Right. So let's do a quick tour of the landscapes Ivan and the pony travel through and just see how the world keeps shifting. They start in the familiar, grounded world of the field, the road, the stables, a world of hard work, family grumbling, local expectations.
The baseline reality they have to leave behind.
Exactly. And the first big shift is psychological. The court. It's not physically dangerous at first, but it's full of psychological peril, intrigue, vanity, judgment. The courtiers conspire to test Ivan because they're afraid his authenticity will mess up their social order.
So they try to bury him in work.
Or they create impossible tasks, like telling him to go catch the mythical firebird. So right away, you have this conflict between real, honest work and, courtly performance.
And from that toxic place, the world just explodes outward. The epic quest locations, the Firebird Mountains, the huge, unforgiving sea.
And when they're on the ship, there's this unexpectedly deep, quiet moment. The pony reveals he heard the sailor's sad song when he was born. It was a song about loss, a lost chest, and a compass rose, and how the sea took all and never gave back.
So even the magical helper has a history of sorrow.
Exactly. The pony connects this shared experience of change, whether it's their joyful adventure or someone else's deep loss. It's a really profound touch.
And then the narrative pushes them into the most challenging place of all, the ghost town.
This is where the story gets really ambitious. The description is so visceral. A silent, broken city that smells of smoke and hot metal. The cold fear they feel tells you right away this isn't just ruins. It's a place of deep, unresolved collective memory.
It's a metaphor for confronting unspoken suffering.
It is. Our sources on trauma talk about how collective trauma, community-wide suffering, is often passed down. But fear, or shame, or politics often leads to silence, avoidance. And the ghost town forces a gentle confrontation with that silence.
And it becomes explicit at that crossroads with the stone carving, right, you will forget. Left, you will keep and never let go. Straight, you will understand everything.
That's the ultimate choice, isn't it? Forgetting to escape pain, clinging to pain as your identity, or striving for the really hard work of understanding.
And the story doubles down on it. Ivan tries to take the easy path first.
He does. He chooses to forget, and he's immediately and forcefully sent back to the stone. The story is telling you that avoiding the truth doesn't work. It just makes you circle back until you're ready to face the necessary path, the path to understanding.
And that sequence gets even deeper when Ivan sees the ghost town's architecture start to move. The whispering wind.
The same wind as the court gossip.
Right. It starts organizing the broken houses into these unnatural, rigid patterns. On one side, you get this strict hierarchy of big houses and small shacks. It's labeled order. On the other, you get this unnatural row of identical, poor houses labeled equality.
That visual is so powerful, especially for a kid. It links the smell of conflict, hot metal and smoke, to the imposition of these rigid, unnatural social structures. It's a gentle critique of forced conformity, whether it comes from a tyrant or a shallow version of equality that erases individuality.
And that whole sequence, from the court whispers to the ghost town, is this subtle but powerful metaphor. It allows an adult and a child to talk about these really abstract ideas like historical silence, but inside the safe container of a fairy tale.
And finally, we get to the cauldrons. This is the ultimate trial, presented as this big cinematic scene of transformation. 3 cauldrons that promise renewed strength and youth, but with huge physical risk.
It's the payoff for a journey built on kindness and intuition, not just luck.
Exactly. So now that we have that richness, let's pivot to how you actually use it. The genius, like you said, is in these meaning cases. They're gentle, actionable entry points for discussion. They reinforce that whole idea of choice without moral lessons.
The whole method is about responsible choice and listening to yourself, not about finding the correct answer.
Right. And the optional questions are written to avoid that pressure. They turn these heavy themes into accessible questions.
Okay, let's walk through the 4 key meaning cases the book offers. Case 1 is maybe the most poetic. Inner navigation, taught through the mythical birds Ivan finds on these carved wooden boards.
Yeah, so he learns about Siren, who embodies sweet sadness, Alkanost, who is clear joy or calm, and the Firebird, which is desire, living light, the goal of his first quest.
And the discussion there isn't just about happy or sad, it's about noticing shades of feeling.
So, Case 2 focuses right on social pressure, tying back to the court and the Hill of Whispering Dragons.
This is where you connect the courtier's actions, their envy, their toxic whispering, to that real-world anxiety about fitting in. The core issue is that fear of being judged, that conflict between your inner voice and what everyone else expects.
And the question an adult can ask here is just masterful in its simplicity. Is it easy to stay yourself when other people expect something else from you? What can help?
It immediately reframes it from judging the fictional characters to developing your own personal strategies.
And it connects back to the ghost town, where the wind forces the houses into those unnatural patterns of order and equality. The child learns that standing firm against that pressure is part of the hero's journey.
So case 3 is about choice and consequence, bringing us back to that stone in the ghost town. Forget, keep, or understand. This is all about responsible choice without an adult moralizing.
And that moment where Ivan tries to forget and get sent back, that's essential. It's the story telling the child that avoidance is just a detour, not a solution. The hard path, the path toward understanding is necessary because those difficult memories and consequences, they shape who you have to become.
There's a suggested question here that I think cuts right to the heart of it. When Ivan is given a scary task, why doesn't he run away?
Yeah, that's a great one. It lets you explore courage, which the story defines not as being fearless, but as being consistent and committed in the face of fear, a crucial distinction for building resilience.
And then case 4 deals with this really sophisticated problem. How do you avoid becoming cynical, even after you've achieved huge success? This happens during the time of reward and in the room of appearances.
It's devastatingly insightful. Ivan has succeeded. But the nobles, they can't accept authentic success. They immediately try to refine his image.
They try to fit him into their box, right?
Yeah, right.
And they give him this lofty title, Master of the Royal Horse Shows, whether he wants it or not. It's a critique of how institutions can, commodify and neuter real talent.
You get this perfect visual metaphor in the room of appearances. They dress him up in this fancy red coat, the clothes of performance, but he looks uncomfortable.
And the most cynical detail is the court clerk, who's just focused on the brand. He's thrilled by this compass rose on the cloak and immediately rebrands it as Ivan's signature gesture for the public.
They're applauding the image, not the man, not the journey. And the lesson for the child is so profound. Superficial applause for a manufactured image should not make you cynical about your real internal strength. And to bring this section to a close, we have to go back to the cauldron scene. That cinematic trial gives you this really clear contrast between virtue and power. The adult can ask, why do you think it goes well for Ivan, but the king fails?
Okay, that structural integrity brings us back to the practical side. How do we make sure this rich, complex stuff doesn't just overwhelm everybody?
It all comes back to the connection ritual and sticking to these micro rules. The protocol is so simple, it's designed to fit into a busy evening without any pressure. 1, read 1 chapter. 2, color 1 coloring page. That's your automatic built-in pause.
The processing time.
The processing time.
All right.
3, and this is optional, ask 0 to 2 questions from the list. And 4, stop anytime the child signals they're done.
That ritual is the foundation, but the caring skeptic in me has to ask about the difficult moments. What if the child is just silent the whole time? The adult's going to feel like they're failing.
Right.
Or what if really strong emotions come up? The story touches on loss, on collective memory. What happens then?
That is exactly what the micro rules are for. They're a short, actionable checklist for the adult. They're simple, not clinical, but they are rooted in trauma-informed communication. They're designed to help the adult be that steady adult, kind of like the character Yasna in the story, who holds the frame and explains things without any pressure.
Okay, so let's really detail these, because I think these are the most actionable takeaways for anyone listening, especially if they're worried about those emotions surfacing.
Rule 1. Silence is connection and processing. We're so often taught that a pause in conversation is a failure.
It feels awkward.
It does. But here, it's encouraged.
Yeah.
Let the coloring be the pause. The sources confirm that silence during a shared activity is a huge part of connection. It's the cozy island in a chaotic day. The child is still engaged, still processing, even if they're not talking. The adult has to resist that urge to fill the silence.
And that is a real behavioral change for a lot of adults. We default to prompting or correcting.
Right. Rule 2. Strict question limits. Choose only 1 or 2 questions, and stop immediately if the child doesn't want to talk. This reinforces their empowerment, their choice.
Yeah.
I don't know, or just a shake of the head is a perfectly valid answer.
Okay. Rule 3. What if emotions do rise?
That's the critical moment. You have to validate them immediately. Acknowledge and name the feeling. I see you look frustrated, or that sounds like that feeling of sweet sadness, like Siren's song. Then you immediately return to safety. Remind them, we are here in our comfy space, and this is just a story. And then you just pause. Stop reading.
And if the emotion is escalating, say, towards anxiety?
You need a simple anchor to bring them back to the present. The sources recommend really simple grounding techniques, things that redirect attention from the emotional memory to the physical room.
Let's explain these slowly so people can actually use them. What are we talking about?
Okay, one of the easiest is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. The adult just guides the child. You breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 counts, you hold it for 7 counts, and then you slowly breathe out through your mouth for 8 counts. The long exhale is what signals to the nervous system that it's safe to relax.
Okay.
Another great one is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. It engages all 5 senses. You just ask the child to slowly name 5 things they can see right now, 4 sounds they can hear, 3 things they can physically touch, 2 things they can smell, and 1 pleasant thought.
So you're not trying to be a therapist, you're just providing a simple, concrete anchor back to the reality of the room.
Exactly. It helps the child regain a sense of control over their reaction, which is often the first thing that goes when you feel overwhelmed. The adult just provides the calm scaffolding while the child finds their footing again.
And the final rule?
The final rule.
Yeah.
Sensitive chapters require adult pre-reading. If you know your child is sensitive to themes like loss or conflict, you should pre-read those chapters, like the Ghost Town one. And this is purely for adult self-prep.
So you can manage your own reaction.
Right, so you don't accidentally inject your own anxiety into the ritual. The adult's job is just to be that steady, calm presence.
This whole approach seems to elegantly integrate the science of shared book reading with these really practical, safety-informed communication rules. If the core purpose is a connection ritual and providing a safe pause and not imposing a lesson, it sounds dramatically safer and, honestly, exponentially more beneficial for social-emotional growth, especially with all the pressures kids are facing today.
Exactly. The book is positioned as a warm adventure, plus creative engagement, plus these optional short questions. It's a framework to help kids understand complex feelings and find their authentic voice. It gives adults a non-clinical way to talk about huge themes, like confronting hard truths or the dangers of conformity, all inside a safe fairy tale about choice and resilience.
And we've established that Ivan models the subtle but really enduring gentle strength. He relies on kindness and intuition, not aggression, and he successfully navigates a world full of envy and pressure. He finds his people, not his audience.
We will put the link to find the book, Ivan and the Little Magic Pony, in the description below. If you're thinking about starting this connection ritual with a young person in your life, just remember that simple protective protocol we outlined.
Try it.
Try it. 1 chapter, 1 scene, 1 question, or even 0 questions. The goal isn't the discussion itself. The goal is the ritual of just being together, side by side, processing this big, complex world without any pressure.
And to leave you with a final thought to consider, one that builds on Ivan's quiet journey. What does this story teach us about the subtle, enduring power you find when you consistently choose kindness and intuition over the aggressive, anxious pursuit of success? And maybe more personally, how can we recognize and intentionally cultivate that exact gentle strength in ourselves so we can model it for the young people we're trying to guide?
That is a deep dive for you to begin today. Thanks so much for joining us.